Liam Byrne MP.
Prime Minister, thank you. You said at the top of the meeting that your vision for 3 years' time is that, in your words, I want people to feel better off. Just so we're absolutely clear, is the ambition that everybody in our society should feel better off in 3 years' time, including the poorest 40% of households?
Yes.
So you'll be aware of some quite troubling forecasts from, for example, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation that says that, in fact, having looked at all the measures that the government's announced on the table by the summer, the bottom 40% of households are not going to be better off in 3 years' time. They're actually going to be £1,200 a year worse off. So what do you think needs to change between now and the end of the Parliament so that everybody in our society is, in fact, enjoying higher living standards?
Well, we need to do a number of things. The first is we've got to get much better growth into our economy and create more wealth in the first place. And that's why we've put so much store on ensuring that we took necessary measures at the budget to deal with our inheritance. We then had a spending review which was targeted across the country at this question of making sure that if there is a thriving economy, it's a thriving economy in every part of the country and not just in some parts of the country. And it's why we've already in the spending review focused on things like the living wage, the national wage, and the minimum wage, and ensuring that wages are going up. They've gone up more in the last 10 months they went up in the last 10 years. So that's the first part. The second part then is the poverty strategy that has to ensure that this is across the whole of society and every location, because in addition, as you all know, to the growth figures, we've had inequality variances across the country, place by place, and we have to have a laser focus on that, because whilst we want more wealth creation and the economy to thrive, and we do and we will, we can't have that as London and the South East and redistribution as a sort of one-word answer for the rest of the country. To my mind, that is fundamentally wrong.
Mr. Byrne.
The challenge that we've got, though, is that the Bank of England now forecasts that wage growth is going to slow down. Joseph Rowntree Foundation says that earnings for the bottom 40% are going to fall by £700 a year. The Office of Budget Responsibility says real household disposable income is going to fall to almost zero in a couple of years' time. Resolution Foundation says that the freeze on tax thresholds means that the real wage growth for the poorest will get obliterated. We've got council tax going up by 5%, food going up 4.5%, we've got energy bills up 10%, water bills up 26%, and Joseph Rowntree Foundation says that for those coming off fixed-term mortgages, they're going to be paying on average £1,400 a year extra by the end of this Parliament. Similarly, poor picture and outlook for renters. So we've got taxes and bills that are rising faster than wages. So the question remains, what else do you think is needed over the next year or two so that everybody is enjoying higher living standards by the time of the next election?
Well, if I just concentrate on two aspects of that. Firstly, the income side and then the cost side. On the income side, obviously, we have already pulled the lever of increasing minimum wages, which is on average of, I think, about £1,400 extra into everybody in effectively 3 million of the lowest lowest paid, above inflation increases for standard rates of universal credit. And then on the other flip side, if you like, free childcare is coming on stream from this September across the board from 9 months through to school starting age. Free school meals are being rolled out, breakfast clubs are being rolled out, limits on what you have to pay on school uniforms, and warm homes discount is £150 per household. That's gone from 3 million to 6 million households for this winter. So I do think there are things that government has done and will continue to do. But in the end, the central focus has to be on creating more wealth and making sure that we have a growing and thriving economy. That's been the single biggest failure of the last 14 years, which is we haven't had an economy that has grown in any significant way.
These are all important steps forward, but having reviewed everything that you've just announced, the Resolution Foundation said that the poorest half of households, by the time of the next election, will still be £200 poorer than they were last year. So the question remains, over and above what you've announced, what else do you think is needed in order that everybody in our society is enjoying high living standards in a couple of years' time?
I think we need a central poverty strategy, and we're putting that around the child poverty strategy, which we're rolling out in the autumn.
But you could cut people's taxes. I mean, if we taxed investment income in the way that we do work, if we tweaked up capital gains tax so that it was fairer, there would be enough money to deal with the fiscal pressures that we forecast and deliver a big, bold working class tax cut, just as they delivered in Australia. Surely that should be an idea that remains on the table going into the budget.
Well, I'm not going to be tempted to start speculating on what might or might not be in the budget. It's going to come in the autumn. We will get the forecast. The Chancellor will set out her decisions according to that forecast, but I'm not going to be drawn into speculating on what that might be at this stage.
Well, Chair, the Prime Minister didn't rule that out, so I'll take that as a win and quit.
We're in for a long 6 months because no Prime Minister or Chancellor ever says in advance what's going to be in the budget, and every day there'll be a story saying doesn't rule out.
Okay, we absolutely, Prime Minister, we're very aware of that. It's Debbie Abrahams, MP.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Since you were last before us, Prime Minister, my committee published our interim findings on the Pathways to Work inquiry in May, where we expressed our considerable concerns about the imminent UC and PIP legislation, and particularly in terms of the changes in eligibility of these benefits, with the potential of pushing 250,000 disabled people into poverty. Now, I acknowledge the concessions the government made to the bill, but the fear and anxiety that this caused to disabled people currently in the system cannot be underestimated. I just wondered what you'd like to say to them now and what you will be doing differently in the future.
Well, it's very important that they feel secure and supported, and that is at the heart of what we are doing in the changes we're making to welfare and related areas. I want to see more opportunities and more support put in place. And some of that will come from the state, some of it can come from employers. I'm absolutely clear in my own mind there's more that employers could do and the state can help them to do to encourage those with disabilities to come into work and to retain if they are in work. And I've seen good examples of that myself, as no doubt you have, but not enough across the country. So we need to do more.
Thank you. Well, on that very point, you'll be aware that there is still projections that your government has put forward that estimate 50,000 newly disabled people in April next year will be pushed into poverty because of the reduction in the UC health element of the bill. Now, you mentioned about getting more disabled people into work. Charlie Mayfield, who, as you know, is doing the Keep Looking Working review, not to be published until later this autumn, Prime Minister, has said it will take several years before the labour market changes in order to allow more people to be employed, disabled people to be employed, but also to retain disabled people. So my question to you is, several years, 8 months, what are we going to do to mitigate against the potential pushing of another 50,000 people, disabled people, newly disabled people, and their families into poverty?
Well, I think the Mayfield report is coming in the autumn with the final recommendation, so we obviously need to look at that piece of work, and that is focused, as you know, on what employers can do. I don't accept that everything is going to take years. Some changes do take years, but not all changes take years, and we have to do work in the interim to give that support to those with disabilities.
What specifically had you in mind, given that we've had a disability employment gap for, well over 10 years?
Well, I think there's a lot of work can be done with employers to encourage them to take on and to retain. That doesn't need primary legislation. I've seen pilot examples of it across the country, which I'd like to see many more of, that have been very, very successful. So, yes, I accept that, if you want to pass legislation, it'll probably take some time. I don't accept that every change that is needed, some of them that I've seen for myself have been quite effective, don't need legislation at all, and I think we can get on with that as quickly as possible. The Mayfield recommendations will be on with us, obviously, later this autumn.
Can you give an example, Prime Minister, on that?
Yes, I'm aware of the Trailblazers examples, and again, these are pilots and tens of thousands, not the hundreds of thousands that will be affected next April. And I'd just like to point out that in my part of the world, there is one job for a disabled person for every 333 disabled people chasing them. Slightly different in the south, where there's a more vibrant local economy. It just seems so punitive in that regard. But ultimately, Prime Minister, I just wanted to go back to my first point about doing things differently. This was poor legislation. It was designed to save money for the Treasury by cutting support to sick and disabled people. It was so far removed from Labour values of fairness and social justice, let alone compassion and common decency. I have to say I felt ashamed. So what are the values that will underpin the government in terms of the policy making going forward, so that we avoid the harms, the potential harms and the real harms that people are going to face, disabled people, vulnerable people are going to face?
I think this is a really important Labour value. I think the fact that there are nearly 1 million young people out of work, not earning or learning, is a huge challenge for our country. And none of us should be accepting of a system that operates like that. It is broken, it needs to be mended. All the evidence is that if you're on benefits and out of work at that young age, the likelihood of ever getting into good, well-paid, secure employment goes down, down, down for the rest of your life. 1 in 10 working age people out of work and 3 million locked out for health-related reasons. It is no wonder that almost everybody says the system is broken and it's got to be changed. And I'm glad that we've started the process of change. I'm not going to pretend that we got everything right in recent weeks, but we do need to reform the system, and we should take that on as a Labour argument, in my view.
Couldn't agree more. Everybody agrees that reform needs to happen. It is a broken system. But reform does not, you mentioned right at the beginning in your introduction, reform does not mean cuts to household incomes of already struggling households. We must do better, Prime Minister. You mentioned about reducing poverty. This had the potential of actually increasing it. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
What do you think about this? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe.